So thank you, Kenyon, for the introduction. For those of you who don't know me, my name is James Swallow, and I am humbled and honored to deliver the people's state of the city to you all tonight. I'm going off script here, but I would encourage you, this is a packed house tonight. We have a lot of energy here. I would encourage you, interact, hoot and holler. You share your like signs up in the air. Just whenever you have content or issues that really speak to you, I would encourage you to interact as much as you can. So looking out into the audience, I see a lot of friendly faces out there of my Long Beach family who've welcomed me to this movement. I also see a lot of new faces, and I'm thrilled that you're all here tonight to join us to be a part of something bigger. Because looking at everyone and feeling the emotions in the room right now, I'm feeling this moment, but this is our moment. And I feel a sense of belonging and acceptance. And to me, these are two of the most powerful feelings I've ever felt. A little about myself. I grew up in Santa Ana, California, and although I had a good crew of friends, I never had close friends that I could share my personal demons with. Let's just say middle school was rough, and high school wasn't that great either. So during my time in middle and high school, I struggled with my own sexual orientation. Seeing images and stereotypes in the media and experiencing the homophobia oppressed me a lot, and even at times threw me into depressing thoughts. But there were two things that saved me. First, I had teachers that reached out to me and saw the potential that I had. They gave me the chance to express myself through writing, art, music, theater, and saw talent that even I couldn't see. Second, I had the love and support of my family and giving me the courage I needed to embrace myself for who I am. Because of these opportunities and support, I felt like I could belong. I belonged to a community that could accept who I was and what I had to offer. That courage allowed me to come out as a gay man to my friends and family in 10th grade and accept my own self. That courage allowed me to graduate from high school and eventually be the first in my family to graduate from college at Cal State Long Beach. I also, because my mom would get mad at me, I want to give a special shout out to my parents who are joined us here tonight. I'm not going to point them out, they'll get embarrassed. As part Jicarilla Apache on my father's side, I was part of the Cal State Long Beach American Indian Student Council and worked alongside other feisty students to raise awareness about the struggles and racism towards Native American students on college campuses. And we used to sing a song in Lakota, and that meant the community is excited for you to complete your education and eager for you to bring your knowledge back to the community. And I think about that, and those are words that still resonate with me to this day. Being able to organize alongside bus riders in Santa Ana and some of the most amazing young people in Long Beach has given me the chance to build community with others and give others the sense of belonging that I felt. Tonight is about what we're building together. A vision for investment in our youth, a healthy environment and an economy for all, and strong, connected communities. That's a Long Beach where there is no 7-year life expectancy difference like we saw in that previous video. Y'all agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. So as we begin tonight's presentation and dive into difficult issues, we invite you to keep a couple questions at the front of your mind. First, how do we continue to grow our city while embracing the assets of our current residents to maintain our diversity? As our city grows, we want the people who currently live in our communities to thrive as well. Second, how do we increase support for laws that benefit marginalized communities so all of Long Beach can flourish? That's a beautiful word, flourish. It's been proven over the past 5 years that when we lift up the most vulnerable communities, all of Long Beach flourishes. And finally, how do we demonstrate the courage to make this vision real? The courage to inspire one another to have high expectations for our city, for residents to move into action, and for elected officials to enact strong policies. So what's your vision of Long Beach? Please take a minute to talk to your neighbor, get to know them, and or tweet about what the change you would like to see in your community. And if you're tweeting, please remember to use the hashtags on your thumbs up signs. And we'll pop up here too. So please, take a minute. What's your vision for Long Beach? All right, thumbs up, I like it. So in the next portion of our presentation, we're gonna talk about the challenges Long Beach faces in achieving our vision and the community-centered solutions to tackle these long-standing problems. So up on the screen is a map of Long Beach with numbers in red and blue indicating the life expectancy for each zip code. Long Beach is an incredibly diverse city, but it's also fairly segregated in terms of where people live. On the right side of the map is East Long Beach. Now folks on that side of the city are predominantly white and live the longest. The left side of the map includes Central, West, and North Long Beach, areas where people of color predominantly live. Latinos, African Americans, Cambodians, Pacific Islanders, and Filipinos being some of the major ethnic groups represented on that side of the city. People in this part of Long Beach experience higher rates of poverty and shorter life expectancies. They're more likely to be exposed to pollution and have less access to park space and fresh food, as well as quality housing and other necessities. Looking at the map, you can see the difference between East Long Beach and the rest of the city. The difference between 90815 and nearly 83 years life expectancy, and 90802 at just under 76 years. That's 7 years, and you see the difference between most of Central, West, and North Long Beach. Keeping this map in mind, let's begin with the challenges of our city, but more significantly, the opportunities for change. Through this, we'll look at the larger connections between the environment, jobs, poverty, displacement and economic development, police violence, community safety, and access to opportunity for young people. Are we ready? Are we ready?
Yeah!
I like it. In Long Beach, our natural environment is a gem for all of us to enjoy. From the thriving wetlands to the beautiful and scenic coastline, we have a lot to be proud of and to safeguard from the west side to the east side. All of our neighborhoods deserve clean air, open park space, and a strong economy. Yet we often find discord between the balance of maintaining a healthy environment and the health of our economy. Long Beach is an oil town. We sit on the Wilmington oil field, which is the third largest oil field in the United States. And combined with the Port of Los Angeles, we are home to the largest port complex in the nation. This makes us one of the most environmentally burdened communities in the state of California. At the root of all this, we begin to see how our economy is tied to pollution. From the oil refineries, to the trash incinerator, to the port emissions, and the diesel pollutions on freeways like the 710 and the 91. Unfortunately, it is communities of color who bear the unequal burden of environmental pollution. The port truck drivers who fight every day to be recognized for the pay they deserve. The residents who have no regular access to waste and recycling, and the children who live and play along our fence line communities. But this is why policies matter. This is why policies matter. If we work to address this issue, but fail to have the courage and determination to see it through, we run the risk of leaving people behind. For example, since 2008, our Port's Clean Trucks program has aimed to take diesel polluting trucks off crowded roads and freeways and replace them with cleaner trucks. According to the Port of Long Beach, the program has reduced truck pollution by more than 90%. That's a great environmental win. But while this is a great environmental win, the workers who operate these clean trucks are paying the price. Due to the fact that a majority of port drivers are misclassified as independent contractors, the responsibility for leasing and maintaining these clean trucks rests entirely on their shoulders. This means that they are paying full price for these subsidized trucks, and as a result, many of them are victims of wage theft and struggling with poverty. More recently, as our city leaders move closer to approving the removal of the Terminal Island Freeway in West Long Beach to explore the option of replacing it with open park space, the community and local residents found themselves at odds with the good movements industry. We know that these issues can be resolved and that the health of our economy and the economy do not need to be in conflict. These are not separate issues, but rather deeply connected. So if the emphasis in the city focuses more and more on how sustainable and green we are becoming, but we fail to pay attention to what is happening with our workforce, then we're missing the opportunity to create a healthy community for all. And I want to say, if a policy is not working for some of us, it's not working for all of us. And when you look at the large percentage of Filipino, Latino, Cambodian, and African American families that live in these environmentally impacted neighborhoods, you see who is disproportionately exploited by these unfair labor practices, and which individuals are forced to live with the burden of an asthma inhaler for their entire childhood and adult life. Through this lens, we start to understand the significance of race and ethnicity. This is environmental racism, and we need to have the courage to recognize the justice that our communities of color deserve. But we need to also have the courage to embrace the assets within our local community that invest and believe in clean, renewable energy and green technology that doesn't leave our labor force behind. And having a balance between our local economy and the environmental health of our city depends on the quality of economic opportunities we have for our workforce, our families, and our youth. Take a walk with me. If you walk down 10th Street, Anaheim, Santa Fe, Atlantic, PCH, or any other neighborhood, one of the primary concerns you'll hear from people is jobs. In the past year, our citywide unemployment rate reached a 7-year low, dropping down to 6.4% as of December 2015. Yet we continue to see major disparities when we compare neighborhoods like 90803 and 90813, with 2.6% unemployment in Southeast Long Beach and a 19% unemployment in Central Long Beach. But as you look at this map, think about the environmental racism we just discussed. The neighborhoods that face high unemployment are the same neighborhoods that face high levels of environmental pollution. And these are the same neighborhoods that have the lower life expectancies than the rest of the city. That 7-year difference is real, and addressing it goes beyond one single issue. Even as the employment rate increases, the poverty rate remains relatively the same. This graph illustrates this looking at poverty and unemployment data for Long Beach from 2010 to 2014. You can see the dramatic decrease in unemployment over the years by looking at that bottom blue line. That line moves from 13% to 8.2%. But when you compare that to the red line in the middle, we see a different pattern. That red line represents the poverty rate over the same amount of time, which stays pretty consistent at 20%. This means that 1 in 5 Long Beach residents continues to live paycheck to paycheck, regardless of their ability to find work. And poverty, we must acknowledge that poverty hits different parts of our community harder. As you can see with the yellow line on top, which represents the poverty rate among single mothers in Long Beach. That rate stays consistently around 40%. So instead of asking ourselves, how can we provide more services for low-income families? What we should be asking is, how do we end working poverty? Where people work full-time and still can't meet their basic needs, forcing them to rely on public assistance. And that's if they qualify for public assistance, so we ain't gonna go there. Additionally, we can't ignore the rapid growth of low-wage fields of work, and the inaccurate and damaging stereotype that service jobs are only for the underskilled and young. Many people believe low-wage workers are teenagers, working part-time after school and earning extra spending money. Yet the reality is that the average age of a low-wage worker is 36 years old. 89% are not teenagers. More than half are women. And on average, they earn more than half of their entire family's total income. But low wages are not the only piece of the puzzle for full-time and part-time workers. When workers are not allowed to take breaks, forced to work overtime, or have illegal deductions made from their paychecks, this is known as wage theft. Wage theft is an illegal practice that negatively and disproportionately impacts undocumented workers, immigrant workers, the formerly incarcerated, and youth. And this includes the port truck drivers we visited earlier.
That's right.
Thanks to the collective action of workers and community members who took the courage to stand up for economic justice, we've seen some major wins to give working families the economic opportunities they deserve. In previous years, we featured this infamous pay stub of a Pacific 9 transportation truck driver illustrating the illegal deductions they faced on a weekly basis. As you can see, this worker earns a weekly gross pay of $975, yet gets $962 illegally deducted for things like cargo fees, parking permits, fuel, and more, leaving them with a take-home pay at the end of the week of $12.90. Raise your hand if you think you can live off $12.90. That's what I thought. But in December, workers at Pac 9 Transportation finally won their lawsuit against the company and will now be paid over $7 million in back wages. Oh, it gets better. And just last month, after several hours of the city council meeting and an after-midnight vote, Long Beach took the courage to stand with Seattle, New York, Los Angeles, and Santa Monica and give workers a raise to $13 an hour and a pathway to 15. Let's give a huge round of applause to the residents, unions, community groups that form the Raise the Wage and End the Wage Theft coalitions to give Long Beach a raise. Give a big round of applause. Because of their courage, 54,000 workers in Long Beach will be getting a raise. $139 million will be put back into our local economy, and workers will finally begin to see proactive wage enforcement. Okay, so y'all like to cheer. Y'all like to cheer. Yet the reality is that we have a lot of work to do. In Long Beach, only 11% of wage theft cases that are won by employees actually see their final settlements. And while the new law on raising the minimum wage and wage enforcement is developed, the challenge ahead now becomes, how do we enforce these new laws, and what does enforcement look like? The community will continue to push for strong enforcement to help ensure that we leave no one behind, because that's the real Long Beach way. And at the end of the day, oh, we should cheer for that. Yeah, that's good. At the end of the day, the dialogue around employment and poverty is not complete unless we address the need for respect and dignity for all our workers in Long Beach. And in particular, women hotel workers who carry the heaviest burden of keeping our city a top tourist destination. As hotel occupancy rises, hotel workers are facing higher workloads. These work environments are often unhealthy and unsafe, with the predominantly female workforce facing overwork and sexual harassment with very few protections. At last year's People's State of the City, we were introduced to Claudia Sanchez and called upon to stand with women against abuse. This year, We're privileged to deliver an update from her family and learn about what's next for all of Long Beach hotel workers.
Mientras tanto, rezan por una joven que lavaba platos en un hotel y que sufrió un derrame cerebral después de 14 horas de trabajo.
When I first met Claudia, I was told that she had been working at the Renaissance Hotel and she had worked a full shift and had been working many hours and then was asked to work extra hours, I believe up to 14 hours. And after that stressful day in the parking lot of the hotel, she suffered an aneurysm and went into a coma.
Nos hicieron una llamada como a las 9:10, más o menos. Nos dijeron que Claudia había sufrido un desmayo y que se le había llevado a la ambulancia. Nosotros llegamos allá al hospital, vimos a Claudia, ahí la tenían, pero ella estaba inconsciente, ella estaba vomitando, no sabían en realidad qué era lo que tenía ella.
Pues sí, fue un golpe muy duro cuando la vimos ahí. Llegamos... Bueno, yo llegué bien, pero él llegó como jugando, o sea, su papá, porque mi hija estaba así, se miraba como borracha. Y ya entonces yo le dije, no, y bien, una cosa muy horrible. La verdad que como nadie se lo desea a uno, ni el peor enemigo.
I was called to see Claudia a day or two after she was rushed to Long Beach Memorial Medical Center. I was called to visit her and her family and to anoint her. She is experiencing brain damage right now. Before this accident, she was a vibrant, dynamic, beautiful young woman with her whole life ahead of her. This could be anybody's daughter, anybody's son, anybody's mother or father. She needs to be taken care of for the rest of her life. They are beautiful people. This should never have happened.
Al principio nos dieron un 5% de vida para ella. Le hicieron su cirugía en la cabeza, le quitaron un pedazo de cráneo. Yo preguntaba qué seguía. Los doctores llegaron a decirme que tal vez así iba a quedar. Después nos llegó una carta diciendo que Claudia, si no se presentaba en tal fecha, iba a estar despedida. Supuestamente que ella no se iba a presentar porque ella seguía en el hospital. Después nos llegó la otra carta de que ya estaba suspendida del hotel. Aproximadamente 15 días nos llegó otra carta que había sido un error de haber mandado esa carta de despido, que ella seguía en su empleo, que cuando quisiera regresar ella, que ahí estaba su mismo puesto. Después de 5 meses salió del hospital y aquí está con nosotros. Es duro de verla así, de tenerla así, porque uno nunca piensa que a uno le va a pasar estas cosas.
Saben que todos tenemos necesidad, pero no por la necesidad tampoco seamos esclavos. Porque pues si hoy le pasó a mi hija, al rato le puede pasar a otro más de ahí, y pues no es justo.
There will be a law passed, we hope, and the law will be named after Claudia Sanchez. It will protect the hotel workers, and it will also protect them from being forced to work overtime.
I think it is our duty to have a presence in such situations and say, this is not how God would want this. And so Claudia, being one person in one situation, really represents a lot of other folks out there who are struggling in similar circumstances.
Yo quisiera que cambiaran las leyes en el hotel. Ahora le pasó a mi hija, desgraciadamente. Yo he estado enfrente del hotel pidiendo justicia por todos. Y gracias a Dios, aquí está Claudia. Vamos a seguir en la lucha hasta que se haga justicia. Ella es mi hija Claudia, como les dije. Ella para mí no
estoy mala.
No está mala. Ya, para mí ella está bien.
Nada mal.
Que la gente diga lo que quiera. Pero Claudia...
No.
Pero Claudia para mí...
Estoy bien.
want to take a moment and acknowledge the Sanchez family who actually joined us here tonight and for taking the courage to stand with us tonight. Later this evening, Nina will share more about Claudia's Law and what we can all do to ensure that this won't happen to anyone else. I saw the rough cut of that too, and I still cried. The health and safety of our hotel workers must be a priority for all our communities. It's because of their organizing win in 2012 to move Long Beach voters to pass Measure N that we have been able to lay a foundation for giving all workers in Long Beach a raise and a pathway to $15 an hour. Yeah, that's right. And moving forward, as we look into the broader scope of economic development, it will be critical that we look at wages, the disbursement of jobs, and the enforcement of strong labor laws to protect our workforce and give communities the economic opportunities we've earned. And thanks to new civic partnerships, policies that are shaping development, and the enthusiasm for that Long Beach lifestyle, y'all know what I mean, we're seeing and experiencing new investment in our communities that we've never had before. We can look around our neighborhoods and see the investment. But at what cost is economic development coming to our front yards? Our communities have been starved of investment for so long, and we rightfully deserve to have a renewed sense of interest. But at the same time, we deserve to enjoy the investment, and we deserve to stay in place. We welcome economic development, but our communities must ensure that we have responsible development that is for the community that lives here. That's right. It is within this context that we face displacement, the forced migration of low-income families from neighborhoods they have long called home. And this is why policies matter. Historical policies such as redlining created specific boundaries for banks that determine who they gave loans to, often legally barring people of color from qualifying for loans based off the neighborhood they lived in. This lack of investment impacts these neighborhoods today as residents face poor housing quality and high rates of poverty. In the redlining map, we can see how these barriers shaped our current neighborhoods. The different colors on the map indicate different lending priorities by banks. The red areas you see in central Long Beach around PCH, MLK Park, and more were excluded from investment because of discriminatory lending practices that declined ownership to African American families and other ethnic minorities and prioritized loans to whites. Even modern-day policies, such as the city's downtown community plan, have paved the way for large-scale market-rate housing in our downtown community with no requirements or space for affordable housing, now creating an even greater need for quality, affordable housing for our low-income families. Together, policies such as these have set the stage for our current situation today. It should be no surprise for me to stand here and say that Long Beach has a housing crisis. With a severe lack of affordable housing, residents continue to identify housing as one of the biggest issues and needs in our community. With the median rent in Long Beach now at $1,642 each month, many families who have lived on tight budgets are contributing more and more of their monthly income towards rent. Already, 26% of Long Beach residents earn less than $2,000 a month. We're talking about a quarter of our neighbors who are paying more than half their income on rent. When rents continue to climb, the wages remain low, and there continues to be no investment in affordable housing made over time, we are undoubtedly facing a housing crisis. This reality is nothing new. We can look back at the history of our immigrant communities in Long Beach and see the displacement that has shaped our current neighborhoods. But now we have an opportunity to break this cycle. We have the opportunity to work together to reverse this trend and keep people in their homes, end overcrowded housing, and improve our code enforcement system to make sure all residents have access to safe and healthy homes without the fear of retaliation. If we want to keep the cultural diversity that makes us proudly say, "This is Long Beach," then we need to have the courage to tackle displacement head on. And it will take the courage of all of us to stand up against renter retaliation and support quality, affordable housing in all parts of our community. In 2015, Long Beach experienced an increase in violent and property crime. While our crime rates remain relatively low, increases in crime and policing are disproportionately felt by low-income communities of color. For some of the young people in our community, the feeling and reality of being in danger is so strong that when asked about their goals for the future, a common response is just to stay alive to see graduation. In addition to violence fueled by gangs and racial tensions, Long Beach saw high rates of police killings of civilians in 2015. Of the largest police departments in the United States, Long Beach was tied for 4th in police killings. And here in Long Beach, a large majority of civilians killed by the police in 2015 are people of color, Asian, Latino, and Black. And all of them were men, our own sons and brothers. Over the past several years, police departments in high-crime cities like Detroit and Newark have consistently killed fewer people than police departments in cities with much lower crime rates, such as Austin, Bakersfield, and Long Beach. So in order to curb crime and police violence, it's important to ask, how is city leadership in meaningfully engaging the community members most impacted by these issues? That response needs to be one that brings our communities together, addresses the root causes of crime, such as the lack of quality education and limited access to good jobs, and increases the trust between residents and the police. Oftentimes, the conversation around crime centers on the need for more police. However, these approaches are not reflective of the desires of most residents and often overlook long-term preventative solutions. In fact, a poll of residents in Los Angeles County last fall found that people supported prevention strategies such as job training programs, sports leagues for youth, and resources for substance abuse treatment at much higher rates than they supported increasing the number of police on the streets or building more jails and prisons. A tough on crime approach that emphasizes more police on the streets isn't as effective as prevention strategies, and it weakens community members' trust in the police. The passage of Proposition 47 in November 2014 by 60% of California voters reclassified several non-serious, non-violent crimes as misdemeanors instead of felonies, and signaled a huge desire to move away from a heavy reliance on policing. Many in our community worked very hard to make sure that law got passed. However, since the law's passage, it's not uncommon to hear Long Beach Police Department officers blame Proposition 47 for increases in crime. On the other hand, criminologists who study crime patterns say it's still too soon to know if Proposition 47 is having any effect on crime rates. Crime rates are up in some parts of the state and other parts of the country that have not passed similar laws, and down in others. The LBPD's negative stance against the law has the potential to decrease trust from residents who support crime prevention strategies and our neighbors and family members who benefit from the law. We often hear the mantra, if you see something, say something. And in general, it's good to look out for one another in our communities. However, we can't let stereotypes and assumptions guide our actions. Some Long Beach community members are more likely to be targeted for policing than others due to stereotyping. Among them, are people of color, especially young black men, youth of color, immigrants, and transgendered individuals. For example, when immigrant families are torn apart through immigration raids in the name of public safety, we do more harm than good. When we see a student walking outside during school hours and assume they're up to no good, we'll rely on assumptions without really knowing what's going on. And when police are called out to a situation where no obvious crime is being committed, the chances of that situation escalating into violence increases and community trust decreases. Safe communities have strong networks where neighbors know one another and we work together to bring about the change we want to see. As we look at the issue of community safety, we must invest in resources to increase these networks and strengthen our neighborhoods. And youth of color are at the center of all these challenges. With so much at stake for our future generations, it is our moral duty to invest in youth and provide them with equitable access to opportunities. Within our own school district, we see disparities in student needs, as well as dropout rates and how well students do in school. Franklin Middle School, where we're all sitting tonight, for example, has a higher number of foster students, English learners, and students in poverty than many other schools in Long Beach. So it's important that our school district's budget and policies center the health and educational supports needed by these students and avoid a one-size-fits-all approach that allows some students to get ahead while others fall behind. Investing in youth of color is an investment for our future because Long Beach's future is in color. Our youth deserve to have public investment, from a positive elementary, middle, and high school climate to the success and support in higher education, to their entry into the workforce and develop into socially conscious adults. And I would say y'all here are socially conscious adults, so pat on the back to you. Yeah. Schools should be safe, supportive, and encouraging environments where every student is treated with respect and is supported to succeed. And teachers have the tools they need to foster positive learning environments. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening in many schools in Long Beach. Too many of our students are still being pushed out of class and school and are losing the opportunity to learn for behavioral mistakes. Misbehaviors like talking during class, talking back to a teacher, or fighting should be corrected, but students shouldn't be suspended for them. Too many of our students are still being pushed out of class or school and are losing the opportunity to learn. When we look at the number of total suspensions for 2014 to 2015 in Long Beach Unified and compare that to the previous year, we do see a decrease in suspensions. Even though this number is declining in general, there are still many schools where the suspension rates have not declined at all and where students are still being pulled out of the classroom without being sent home. And the suspension rate of black students hasn't dropped at all and are still disproportionately and unacceptably high, even higher than the state disparity. As you can see, white students and black students are both at a 14% enrollment rate, but black students are suspended at a rate of 41% compared to their white classmates at 6%. If our young people escape the school-to-prison pipeline and avoid being pushed out, the larger landscape of higher education is still proving to be a challenge. Even with students and faculty organizing for more public investment in higher education at Long Beach City College and Long Beach State, the price of education continues to increase for students. As we make progress on access to higher education with initiatives like the Long Beach College Promise, it's important that we pay close attention to how we can support students of color to graduate from college. With rising tuition costs, we need to ensure that our youth have access to jobs that can pay them a wage that will get them through college. Because if students can't afford tuition at CSULB after graduating from LBUSD and LBCC, then what kind of promise are we really offering them? For many of our youth, the importance of a job with adequate pay is not vital just for their education, but for supporting their families and households. If youth of color are constantly trying to get ahead, it falls upon each and every one of us to break down the barriers to living wages, supportive school environments, access to graduation, and all the other social factors that deny them opportunity. Because if we're talking about creating opportunities for youth, it's not about creating miracles. It's about having the courage to pass strong laws and policies that invest in every student, every young adult, and every system that interacts with our youth, from the educational system to the criminal justice system.
Summertime in the LBC, yes. Ooh, summertime in the LBC. Come on. Ooh, summertime in the LBC. Somebody once told me, if the city were a body, graffiti would show you where it hurts. And lately, there's been a lot of graffiti. But I'd rather have graffiti than fingers graduating from pushing the tips of toxic fumed aerosols than to pulling the trigger and drawing blood from black and brown bodies that can't be painted over. How many coats of the same color will we use to mask these problems? How many more arrests will it take to lock away people's pain? And what if the city allowed for our streets to be filled with hieroglyphics as a tribute to those we have lost, so that their names don't have to be etched into the shadows of tombstones, but celebrated through tints and hues created through mixtures of light, love, and tears that we allowed to flow to keep our brushes from drying up. Alicia Faith Todd, 21. Tomas Palmas, 42. Derek Lee Hunt, 28. Jesus Pimentel, 22. Duke Herrera, 24. Kishan Brooks, 15. And at least 20 other names this past year alone in Long Beach, mostly under the age of 25. I recently walked by a new tagging, written in metallic marker at the height of my chest, in elementary school inscription. It read, "Edgar has died, and so has Edwin." And I can only imagine a young child reaching his pen toward the wall as he thought to himself, where do I begin? If I cannot express my emotions at home, then surely I can do it in these streets. And soon, I will walk past that same wall to see it bandaged in blue paint, as if the silver lining was never there to begin with. As if to place iron gates on our bedroom windows shows we are safe. As if to build long wired fences around our lawns means we are protected, a warning to all those who may be tempted to cross. Keep out. Private property. Under surveillance. Do not enter, as if getting to know each other runs the risk of revealing we have all been taken from. When was the last time you greeted your neighbor? When was the first time you truly felt safe at home. And as we are all figuring out what it means to survive, we are quickly forgetting our connections along the way. Our cultures are not just meant for entertainment, but are a passion to keep our stories alive, to move our relations into the next generation so that we will not forget our roots, to carry on the lineage that says we will not be erased, to be reminded that you are not a mistake, that you were chosen to be here, that life is not meant to destroy, but to create. That every stomp from our Aztec warriors beats to the same rhythm as our West African dancers, painting gestures that pay tribute to the sun. As Cambodian apsaras form lotuses, blooming of resiliency. Blooming lotuses of resiliency, or that pop locks and breakbeats born from these streets are messages from our ancestors telling us they are still here, moving through our bodies to find liberation in the pulse of our hearts. For if we don't know where we come from, how do we know where we are going? And who will point our fingers in the right direction along the way? Will my hand form into the shape of a dance? Will it be given a pen to hold? A spray can to push vibrant shades onto the walls behind Franklin Middle School? Or will it be a regret I release and can never take back, like the sound of freedom on the 4th of July being boom, boom, boom. God bless America. Somebody once told me, if the city were a body, graffiti would show you where it hurts. And while I'd rather have these streets painted with stories often silenced within the barbed wires of our home, perhaps we can begin to heal this pain by reaching over that fence for a handshake, a hello, and a smile. Ooh, ooh.